Welcome to World Biogas Association Connect Plus. Connect Plus is a community which we launched 8.5 months ago, and we are 1,000 people, stakeholders from the global biogas, biomethane, renewable energy industries. We have an online platform. I will send you the link in the chat. Please join us there, completely free. There are no membership fees, and we have community habits. We meet every month online. We have webcasts, webinars, podcasts, online roundtables, everything. And we are moving towards our first in-person meetup. So the first pub meetup in London is on June 14th. Write to me if you want to join that one. The next one is in the Netherlands in November, and I'm hoping that community can come to where you are in the world in the nearest future. My name is Aya, and I'm community manager. Check out, you will see information of our future events on that platform. I will share the link with you. We have a fireside chat with Argus Media. We talk about certification, pricing, regulations. In July, we're all in Birmingham for an in-person congress. In September, we kick off with content on India. We also have plans to have webinar on opportunities in Mexico, in China, and various other interesting things. So without any further ado, welcome to our online roundtable. These are our speakers for today. I'll just let you see who they are for a minute. Oh, what's that? And then now I'm handing over to Julia.
Thank you very much, Aya. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And please keep it coming in the chat. We want to know where you're joining us from. So as Aya said, this is very much an engaging session. It is supposed to be a roundtable. Obviously, we're meeting online, so we can't be around a table, but please come and talk to us after our speakers. The session is focusing on debunking biogas myths. So it's really around how we can create that social acceptance and ensure that we can address misinformation. I think everyone is aware in the industry that in recent years we have seen a growing wave of anti-biogas activism, especially in countries like Spain and Italy, but also elsewhere. There are NGOs, environmental NGOs that have been vocal in speaking against biogas and trying to delay vital biogas projects. And communities have also, in certain cases, have been against biogas projects. So it's very important that we talk about this, we understand the root causes for it and how we can address it. Because obviously biogas, we know, the people that work in the industry know that it's a force for good. And so it's important that we create that public awareness and acceptance of this really important industry. I'm very lucky to be joined by experts from the industry. So we have with us Mario Rosato, who's an author and CEO of Sustainable Technologies, and Dr. Jing Liu, who's the CEO and co-founder of BPC Instruments AB. I'm Giulia Ciccarelli. I'm the head of external affairs at the World Biogas Association. And I just thought I would frame today's section with a couple of slides. So I'm going to screen share 1 second. Yes. Yes. Now I just need to put in presentation mode. Yes, that should be working now. Yes, so just to frame today's discussion about what are the most common myths around biogas and what are the arguments that we can all use to debunk those myths. So first of all, I think one that keeps coming up is the fact that biogas competes with food production. But the main thing to be said about that is that actually the majority of biogas potential globally comes from organic waste, and that potential is huge and largely untapped. 98%
One
of
is the bank Q&A.
Sorry, I think we can hear someone. So can you
Too much
mute
to about
yourself,
them.
Alan?
But we still have.
Yes, perfect. Sorry. Um, yeah, that 98% of organic waste are actually not recycled, and biogas is the technology that can get most out of this waste. So it's very important that we continue to grow. On energy crops, which is obviously the main issue around what people think is the competition with food production, we know that highly sustainable energy crops exist that can be integrated into food systems. There's a fantastic example with the biogas done right in Italy. And there are many others. So I think as an industry, it's important that we are a force for good. We ensure that we address that reputational risk that comes
Sorry,
from,
Julia, is
yes.
sorry to interrupt. Do you meant to move your slides because we can't see them moving? They're not in presentation mode.
Oh, really?
Mm.
So I'm still in the first,
Yeah, we are seeing the first one, debunking biogas.
hmm, still the same?
Yeah, are you in the presentation mode?
Yes, I'm in presentation mode.
They're not moving for us. Maybe stop sharing and try to share again. Who knows? That might work. Okay,
Yeah.
we see the second one now.
Okay, let me try
Great.
again.
It works now. We were seeing. Maybe it was a delay. Maybe there's a delay.
Okay,
Cool.
one
Thank
We
you.
can
second.
see it.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Yes?
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
see it.
yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay,
There
what
was a
just
message in the
was.
chat.
Try one step forward and backwards just to see if it is moving.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go back on presentation mode as well, but
Maybe leave it like that if it's working.
I think
We
that's
can all
fine.
see
okay.
what's. Thank
That
you.
should be fine.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just important to be aware of that and ensuring that we actually, when it comes to energy crops, we follow best practice. Second myth is really around the fact that biogas, because it emits CO2, isn't different from fossil fuels. And it's funny because I actually, it happened to me that I was in a bar in London where I met someone from the fossil industry, oil and gas, and he very much made that case because he was just convinced that since we were emitting CO2, it wasn't really different from natural gas. So the real thing is the fact that obviously the CO2 from the industry is biogenic. We're not adding to the atmosphere, so we are carbon neutral or carbon negative, depending on the feedstocks. But sometimes it just happens that even when you talk about facts, if the person you're talking to have different interests, they're not going to listen to you. And that's what happened to me. But obviously, something that we need to address. Next one is around methane leakage that happens at biogas sites and the fact that that can nullify the positive effects of the industry. And here is where obviously it's super important to have methane monitoring in place. The WBA has done a lot of work around creating a certification scheme. Uh, Everyone, please mute yourself because I can hear some background noise. Um, a certification scheme that focuses on ensuring operational best practice and where methane monitoring is obviously a key component. And well-run plants have really low leakages. And if we look at a full LCA, obviously, we still show significant net greenhouse gas emissions benefits and savings with the technology. The next one is what we often hear when we talk to policymakers, the fact that biogas is just too small to matter. It's a nice to have, but it's not a silver bullet and therefore doesn't, deserve as much attention as other technologies. And here, obviously, it's important to talk about the critical role of the industry in terms of abating really hard to abate emissions in heavy industry. transport, heat, and others, where, electrification wouldn't be able to deliver the same results. And the potential, as we often say, is actually huge. We can deliver only through organic waste and sustainable energy crops a third of today's natural gas consumption. So if governments pay attention, the scale will be really impressive. And the other one, the final one that I'm gonna mention here is the one around digestate being a problem. So obviously, we know that digestate can be a problem. Again, please everyone mute yourself because we hear some background noise.
Benina, you mute yourself also. So
Sorry, I was trying to mute and it doesn't let me
Yeah,
mute
yeah,
the
no worries.
speakers.
No worries.
Yeah, I was muted, but when a moment ago I was muted, I couldn't hear anything either from Julia.
Yeah, so let's not do that. Let's just individually, everyone could just mute themselves. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just saying about digestate that sometimes it's considered as a problem, but we know the huge benefits of it. And obviously, in a moment where we are living through a really kind of one of a kind energy crisis that is also bringing a huge fertilizer crisis, the importance of homegrown renewable fertilizers need to be kind of repeated to policymakers, and as an industry, we need to valorize it as a product. And then finally, just to quickly talk about the not in my backyard arguments that we often hear, and many are the reasons why communities tend to be negative towards biogas, one being the hodor issue. But we know that smell problems are actually the result of poor design and mismanagement. So actually really well-run plants don't have that issue. So again, taking that step as an industry to ensure that our plants are well-run to avoid these issues. The second one is the increased vehicle movement. That is definitely something that happens depending also on the scale of the plant. But there are mitigation measures that can be adopted, one being dedicated access roads and restricted delivery hours, and obviously optimizing the routes when possible. Finally, the impact on landscape. That is something that actually all renewable technologies tend to have as an issue in terms of pushback from communities. But in the case of biogas, obviously, the footprint is concentrated and can be compared to agriculture infrastructure. It's a lot smaller than other renewables. And in the energy transition, we know how critical it is that we invest into these projects and, trying to integrate these landscape changes into our environment. So I'll stop it there, and I'll now pass the floor to our next speaker, Dr. Jing Liu. The floor is yours.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nila. So my name is Jing Liu. I'm now sitting from Sweden. So very nice to get the opportunity to participate this meeting. And I think this is a very interesting topic. We talk about the social acceptance of the biogas. And me, as actually I come from the scientific background, used to be a researcher. But in the past more than 20 years, I've been an engineer entrepreneur. So sometimes I didn't see the other side. But so this is actually a very interesting topic to talk about, because the biogas is not only technology business, but also a social acceptance. And one thing I want to address a few things very interesting is I have seen this, and also the people who actually working on the biogas, usually more you work with, the more I have a very positive or truly believe and positive impression on that over time. And this apply to both research, both business people, both also our plant operator. And the more you actually work with, the more you believe this is actually important step and probably the most realistic steps solution to address a lot of challenge nowadays. And this certainly including the renewable energy production. We all know that biogas are producing, biogas, biomethane as a renewable energy source. It can be definitely have an important role in the future energy mix. And also certainly things we're dealing with, the biomass, the waste, a lot of organic waste, the waste management, waste treatment, and circular economy, and also the methane emission. There are arguments, okay, the methane leakage, but people should keep in mind if the organic waste is not properly treated, it will be a leakage of methane and greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. So the best solution is collected, producing properly, and utilized locally. I think that's the right solutions. And nutrients recycle, clearly, we're talking about the sustainability and the recycler, and nutrients recycling is very important. And certainly they create a local economic growth and the job creation. I think that's a quite common understanding for people who work in that business field. And now recent years, people see increasing importance about the energy security. And this happened in Europe. It's, I think, a recent case, but also back in 5 years, the national energy security becomes critically important. And Europe, we're facing a dramatic challenge of how to replace natural gas with biomethane. So there's a huge demand on that. And so the people who work in that field really, I think, really believe that is a solution for many our nowadays challenge. Me, as actually, I would say myself is a very good example, because as I started working on the anaerobic digestion when I was during university, when I take a project course on anaerobic digestions. And then I continue my master thesis work, and then continue doing PhD. So, and then over the past more than 20 years, I've been working on, so basically dedicate my whole professionals in these sectors. The more I work with, the more I feel my passion, and I'm proud of working on the biogas. So nowadays, actually, we are together with my colleague partners, we have developed company, BPC Instruments. We are a very niche product, niche technology company, provide advanced analytical instrument to support both research and the industry production of biogas, focus on feedstock optimization, process optimization worldwide. So I think I feel very I believe this is something contribute to both the society, environment, and also national security, certainly. On the other hand, I see there is a huge also knowledge gap, because even though anaerobic digestion is, to be honest, is nothing new, it has been over there for many decades, but only in recent years, they become, I would say, opportunity to expand, to grow very rapidly, especially under the pressure of energy security issue. And but so a lot of new stockholder, but then there is a big gap among the stockholders. This including project planning, project planning phase, design, construction, plant operation. And also, for instance, on process understanding, feedstock optimization, how we secure the feedstock, how we optimize, select, and control the feedstock quality, how we can standardize the operation or improve the biological aspect, the operation, because we have to focus on also, this is a fermentation process. So we have to make sure the bacteria, the ecosystem are well balanced. And so the biological process stability, the efficiency are very important. And also very connect to our talk today is the public understanding and modern biogas technology. And so the modern technology is a bit industrialized, efficient. We go for to convert organic matter to the biomethane, inject to natural gas grade, or we use as a vehicle, or as a vehicle fuel, or we use it in the various applications. But there is a limited understanding still nowadays in the policymaker, investor, local community, and sometimes even the plant owner and operators. So I would say public awareness. People are maybe afraid something, scared something because they lacking of basic knowledge. And the plant operators sometimes also lacking some sufficient experience, knowledge, so the plant is not operate in the properly. So this actually addresses the importance of knowledge sharing and the public communications. Biogas really, in order to support the long-term growth of biogas, I believe that we have to do a better job on explaining the science in a very simple language. And we need to share the practical successful stories and also address the concern very transparently. So I'm glad that now you mentioned a few things. We should address that. A lot of them is, I would say, it's a misunderstanding. If the process is properly operated, it's actually a very beautiful process and can be operated much more efficient. And we have to make technology more understandable to general public, so people to minimize to eliminate the risk of the fray from the general public. So in this case, actually, I would say the World Biogas Association or other industry association could play a very important role. I mean, including this very open meetings, I think that we openly discuss that has actually meaningful, certainly very meaningful. So to close this, I would say, I feel as a person has been working on the biogas industry for more than, I would say, 28 years. I love biogas process. I truly believe, I feel passionate about that, both from my previous role as a scientist, but also my role in the past 20 years as entrepreneur and technology developers. I'm really proud. This is actually a very good technology, and we should fully utilize that. But to do that, to solve those, we have to bring everyone on board, not only the operating investor and the plant and the local community. We have to share the knowledge in a very comprehensive way, so to engage the general public. So I think I will just stop here, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jing. I really appreciate all the passion and all the dedication to the industry. And I mean, I think biogas has an issue starting with the name. What we sometimes see is because there is gas in the word, people just assume it's something bad, or because it's bio, then it's associated to biofuels. And there is also misinformation around biofuels. So it's obviously a quite difficult environment. And yes, we really need to work on communication. I'll pass to Mario, who's going to give us a real example in terms of, where misinformation has been spread in Italy and what can be done to address it. Mario,
Thank you,
the floor is
Julia.
yours.
So I will bring two examples from my professional experience in Italy. Italy is famous for being the country with the biggest incidence of NIMBY cases, at the point that the government created the NIMBY Observatory, because practically every new project that is presented, regardless of being biogas or biofuels or even big wind or solar plants, are being somehow hampered by local activists, because they say that it will create environmental impact or so. In the particular case of the biogas technology, I would say that every biogas project in Italy is always hampered by some kind of local resistance. And there are some common topics that these groups employ to try to block these projects, at the point that there is a central committee that redacted a booklet that they called the Vademecum Anti-Biogas. So I took this book to analyze which arguments they employ against biogas, and I will show the example of two of these arguments and how to debunk them. One of the most common concerns that these activist groups employ to scare people, scare the population in the town where a biogas plant is to be built, is the hypothetical danger of biogas leaks, because they say that the biogas is poisonous. And why they say it is poisonous? Because biogas contains hydrogen sulfide. So their reasoning is a syllogism. The first proposition of this syllogism is that the concentration of hydrogen sulfide in biogas is between 6,000 and 15,000 parts per million. And the second argument is that the concentration of 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million is already toxic to the respiratory system. The first proposition is probably not true. I've never seen a biogas plant with such a high concentration of hydrogen sulfide. These people cite a paper which, in my opinion, contains a typo, because it is common in biogas plants to have between 600 to 1,500 parts per million. It is already high, but it is still possible. In general, it is below 600 parts per million. So the first argument of the syllogism is probably false, or is just an exceptional case, so it cannot be generalized. So already with a false argument, the conclusion from a syllogism could not be true. This is from the point of view of pure logics. But logics is not the strong point of standard population. So let's concentrate on the second argument. If it is true that 1,000 parts per million of sulfide in air is toxic, we must counter-argue that nobody would breathe biogas. The toxic proportion of 1,000 to 2,000 parts per million is intended in air. But if you have a biogas leak, biogas will mix with air, so the concentration of sulfide will be diluted in air. So if it starts at 1,000 parts per million in biogas, when mixed with air, it will become very fast, lower than 100 parts per million or even less. By the way, if we have a broken biogas dome in the digester, since biogas has more or less the same density of air, it will diffuse in the air more or less constantly in all directions. So the diffusion will be a semisphere with the center point in the point where there is a leak. This is in the absence of wind, of course. If you have wind, the diffusion will take the shape of a cone. In any case, the volume of a sphere is proportional to the cube of the radius. So at a few meters from the point from where the leakage is, the concentration will be so low that will be practically imperceptible. So this is pure mathematics, and it is easy to show to anybody. Nobody can deny this fact. So the first thing we must do when we encounter a group trying to block a biogas project is analyze one by one their arguments, challenge their sources, because many times I've seen that they quote scientific literature which is not correctly scientific. It is pseudoscience, or they cite papers published in publications with low index of reputation. As you know, there is a big deal of pirate scientific literature. There are journals where you pay and you can publish anything you want just by paying. So these journals are not cannot be considered as reputable, as a proof to oppose an argument against a project. So first step is to debunk the sources. Second step is analyze the sources and see if the paper they are quoting is applicable to our case. And then challenge the syllogism, because many times they take two propositions that are true and combine them in a syllogism, but in the syllogism, the fact that the two propositions are true is a necessary condition, but not sufficient. So even if you have two propositions that are true, not necessarily the consequence is true too. So the second case is the public health. It is usual for these activist organizations to say that digestate will diffuse pathogens around in the environment. So the most abused pathogens are Clostridium and Salmonella. It is true that digestate contains Clostridia, but it is also true that Clostridia are a very wide group of microbes, and only two Clostridia are pathogens. One is Clostridium botulinum, the cause of botulism, and the other is Clostridium tetani. Clostridium botulinum is only a pathogen if ingested. So that means that the digestate should come into contact with something that people will eat later, which is highly improbable, because with the current European regulations, it is forbidden to apply digestate on a growing vegetable crop. You can apply digestate before seeding the crops. The second, Clostridium tetani, is only a pathogen if it comes into contact with wounds. And in any case, both genuses of Clostridia exist in the environment regardless of a biogas plant being in operation nearby or not. These groups of Clostridia are ubiquitous. So in your garden, in a public place or in the street, you will find, if you take a sample and analyze it, you will find spores of Clostridium botulinum, Clostridium tetani, and other Clostridia. So it is not a consequence of the neighborhood of a biogas plant that you find Clostridio.
Mario?
Sorry?
Sorry, just need to intervene to say let's wrap up in a minute so we can have time for questions and comments. Is that possible? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
coming to the end, the Italian experience is practically was demonstrated by the local authorities of Bologna and Imola. They made a survey very scientifically because there were many people in those regions claiming that they had got sick because a biogas plant is operating near their homes. They made an analysis and found that digestate has lower concentration of Clostridia, Salmonella, and Formicutes than standard earth mulch from the earth or standard dung from farms. So this confirms a great deal of literature that specifies that the anaerobic conditions, if correctly performed, are a way to for the hygienization of streams of waste in general. So this is also recognized by the European directives, in particular in the case of thermophilic anaerobic plant. 20 days at thermophilic operation are equal to 2 hours of pasteurization. So the digestate of a thermophilic digester is equal to a pasteurized matter digestate, with the advantage that during the digestion you're producing energy, while with the pasteurization you would need to consume energy to heat the matter. So there is a double advantage in anaerobic digestion. So this is the two examples I wanted to bring to you. I have a collection of examples because I have been acting in several cases to support my customers, and I have analyzed a big deal of frequently proposed arguments against the biogas. So I am open to any questions if you want.
Yeah, let's go to questions. Or
Thank you
if
so
anyone
much.
wants to share.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mario. That was fantastic. And I know we already have a hand raised, so I'm going to give the floor to Mike if you have a comment or question. But anyone else in the meantime, please feel free to raise your hands and we'll come to you. Mike Haynes. I hope I pronounce your name correctly.
I see also Dr. Vanita Prasad.
Here's Mike, but we can't hear you, Mike. Maybe.
Good afternoon. My question was about whether there was available frequently asked questions, responses that would provide data that's independently verified.
Yes, so I put in the chat. So the WBA, we are about to launch a new website that it should come online this summer. We want to soft launch it before our World Biogas Summit and Expo in Birmingham. And as part of that website, we will have a frequently asked questions section where we want to bring together all these different resources that are from third parties and ensuring that there is like a hub of counter arguments and kind of papers that can back those and the data behind it. So definitely that's what we want to do. And actually this gives me the opportunity to ask people to send resources to us, and then obviously we would rather for them to be in English because our audience is international. So in the case that these are not in English, we'll have to look at how we translate it. But yes, that's the plan. Thank you for the question, Mike.
No problem. I did send you a link to frequently asked questions I found online, so hopefully that will help.
Fantastic.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that. We have another hand raised. So Dr. Vanita Prasad.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Mario, my question was like, when we are saying that these people are saying that there are some kind of pathogens which are coming, and I am damn sure that there is nothing when we are creating it in an anaerobic condition. But digested handling after it comes out, are we sure that these are done pretty carefully? Because those digesters which are lying outside should needs to be carefully handled by the biogas plant owners. So that some cases it is might be a case where we as uh, anaerobic digester experts needs to be careful that how the plant is maintaining the digested afterwards.
Okay, in Italy, it is mandatory to keep the digestate in storage under anaerobic conditions for 120 days. 120 days at mesophilic conditions is the equivalent of 20 days at thermophilic conditions. And again, it was found that with this storage time, it is enough to sanitize the digestate. Most bacteria will be killed by that. So that's the local regulation here. In particular, my opinion, that's a personal opinion, it's not a norm or the law. The ideal process would be mesophilic digestion, a first step. A second step with a smaller digester, only 20 days at thermophilic conditions. And then storage. And the storage should be designed depending on the local conditions. In Italy, it makes sense 120, between 90 and 120 days because of another regulation, which is the nitrates directive. We have a rainy season here. So if you pour digestate during the rainy season, the nutrients will be washed out and they will pollute the rivers or the lakes. So that's why it is forbidden to distribute the digestate during the rainy season. In India or in other countries, the rainy season is surely different. So the local regulations should also consider this aspect, which has nothing to do with the sanitation of digestate, but in any case must be considered to mitigate the impact of employing or not the impact, the efficiency of the nutrient recovery from digestate.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have another hand raised. So Sarosh.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarosh Rai. I'm with SNV, Netherlands Development Organization, working as Global Technical Advisor. I'm based in Kigali, Rwanda. I have a question or a suggestion, because for this technology, we use the term biogas plant or biogas system when we know very well that this technology has two different important co-products. So sometimes it's, it could be so that the bioslurry value outweighs the biogas value. So should we not use a more neutral term like biodigester and then try to promote both the co-products? And then at the end, it is up to the context and the market to see which one is a major or the main product, and then which one remains as a co-product. In many African countries, Asian countries where we operate, we see that people have their motivation to have the technologies more because of the bioslurry, and then for them, the biogas becomes a co-product, or sorry, a byproduct. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that's very much a constant discussion. I think one of the issues is also the fact that we don't really decide what term people recognize. And I think globally, as things stand, biogas is what tend to have more public awareness. And definitely more awareness in terms of government awareness of the industry. So we have the same problem. We are based in the UK, where actually it's more anaerobic digestion, the term that is most widely used for the industry. But yeah, other countries will be thinking about biogas in a different way. And I definitely agree with the fact that it's not just the energy; it's also the biofertilizer as a critical product, and the fact that we don't want biogas, the industry being perceived only as energy source, but also very much as a waste management technology, because that's one of the key benefits that the industry delivers. So I think in terms of what is the right term, I'm not sure we found the right term, but it's also like we already struggling with ensuring that people recognize the industry. So trying new terms sometimes can be counterproductive because it just brings new notions, new terminologies that confuse our audience. I think that's what I would say. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that and have different perspective.
Can comment if I'm trying to find. Yeah, I would like to comment a few words.
Yes, please.
I think completely correct, because the biogas, they have so many benefit and application, fertilizer and waste handling, renewable energy production. And even in terms of renewable energy production is not necessarily only biomethane. It happened in the past, I would say, 10 years, within 10 years. I mean, in Europe, biomethane seems to be the most, you can say, economically and industrialized is the way to move forward. But that's limited, because even before combined heat and power, it could be a very good. And depending on the electricity, the energy, whether there's a need for heat and so on. So I think every country, every region may slightly different. And now we also talk, one of the key issue I would like to see is it is critically important in order to spread out technology, develop the industry, it is important to make sure the economic aspect of the biogas or anaerobic digestion process. That's why there's a lot of discussion how we can maximize the value. Of course, there's a lot of environmental sustainability benefit, but the plant itself has to be profitable. Therefore, we're talking about how to maximize the market value. We are also talking about how to get the revenue stream, not only for the gas, but could be also biogenic CO2. It could be the fertilizer digestive. So I think the technology is there. It has to be adapted to each nation, each country, the demand.
Thank you. We also have another hand raised. So Michael, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so I think there's a bit of a problem here. Sorry.
Are you joining us from the UK, Michael?
No, I'm actually talking from the United States.
I see.
But my career in biogas goes back to 1987 when I built my first digester in Europe. And I ran biogas operations for an EPC over here in the US. I was for 7 years at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and ran various research projects in biogas and so forth. The most recent thing that was said there, that you want to put emphasis on the on the waste management side, is actually a little bit problematic, because you need to really decide what you want to do. Do you want to address a waste problem by way of a wastewater treatment plant or by way of collecting landfill gas, or do you want to produce bioenergy? The ultimate solution is very different. If you're trying to address a waste problem, your parameters are to minimize the waste and to minimize the environmental load on the very strictly onto the environment. And you're financed largely out of public finance. If you're trying to generate bioenergy, you are in the energy production business, which is a commodity business, and you need to build a plant that is economically successful. Those are two very different goals, and you cannot mix one with the other one. And we see that very clearly in the United States. When you're looking at the facilities, which is the vast majority of biogas facilities in the US, which are largely waste-derived facilities, there is no economic driver to actually minimize the cost of the energy produced from that one. And that is catastrophic for developing a biogas industry as a competitive industry, such as what we have in Germany. So when we in the US sit here and we start comparing, for instance, the numbers in the US, where 2,500 digesters there are, but only 400 are actually remotely close to what is done in a European environment in biogas, where we have 10,000 digesters. It's a very uneven playing field. And mind that at that point, we're comparing the developed first world with what is going on in India and in China. India has millions of digesters. Those are home digesters at a very small scale, which have a very different design and a very different purpose, because they're really focusing on the manure that is collected, or the waste that is collected at a homestead, which is a very small scale. Whereas in the US, what we're looking at facilities that are in the scale of what is, for instance, done in Denmark, where we're running 1,500 tons. Get this, 1,500 tons per day of biomass. We're not even close to we're many orders of magnitude different in other places and on other locations. And that has implications as to what the problems are and what needs to be communicated out there. And so comparing, saying we're doing waste treatment side, that is one thing. But if we're doing bioenergy, that is an entirely different animal. And if we're doing it in this geography versus that geography, is an entirely different animal. I don't think that you can actually lump this all together and the problems that are associated with that into one conversation.
Thank you. No, absolutely. That's very true. Someone was coming in.
I say that I fully agree. It's each sector should be treated separately and in a context. It is not the same making a waste treatment facility for a city like Buenos Aires with 20 million people than a home digester in Africa or in the same Argentina, but in a province. So it's true.
There's a very good point in the chat, Julia, if you've seen it, from Michael McHenry.
So Michael says opposition groups can now form very quickly using social media. The internet searches bring up the explosion risk, odor risk, traffic, and always in the wrong place. That always include YouTube clips. How can promoters of our sector get in front of the bad news? Any comments on that?
Well, from my experience in Italy, the explosion risk is always the key argument of the opposition groups, and it's something very easy to demonstrate with technical arguments that the explosion risk is very low, especially because biogas plants, at least in Europe, all of them must have equipment labeled ATX. So they are inherently explosion-proof components. And the traffic and the odor risk, that's another argument. I didn't mention it, but odor is a subjective problem. And again, in Italy, a local authority conducted a research and found that in 52% of the cases where people were complaining about odors, when the local authority came there and made measurements with an electronic nose and sampled air to analyze it in the laboratory, first of all, the operators did not notice any odor with their noses. And analyzing the samples of air taken in place, there were no traces of odorigenous matter. People, 52% of people complaining about odors were complaining just because of a psychological perception, because they were against that plant. The plant had been built and they did effectively want to stop the operation of the plant because they felt frustrated because they had not been able to stop the construction. So
they smell with their nose, and it is a motive. Their motives are their motives, or their method. They smell with their eyes. They see, and it's a motive more so than and yes. I mean, I back to my point of social media can whip up or can generate a concern or an action group or an opposition group very, very quickly, in hours, days. It can go from, we'll say, one person who has those emotive feelings, who has how do you call it, who do not want to plant or do not want to plant in their area, do want NIMBYs. They can go from a situation where it's one person to a group of 100, 200 on a Facebook or on a WhatsApp group so quickly. So, and they then lean upon others of similar disposition nationally and internationally.
Okay.
In
We've
Ireland,
got
for example,
3 minutes left. Sorry to interrupt. And maybe Julia, we could give a chance to Hilda Morato and then the poll, and then we finish.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Sorry.
okay. Sorry about that,
Sorry.
Michael.
Sorry, Michael.
Helda, do you want to go next?
Okay, yeah, sure. So thank you very much. Thank you very much to you all for the very good interventions and very helpful. I'm calling from Portugal, and I'm a lawyer. I've been working in energy in renewables for the last decade, and I starting to feel very excited about biomethane and biomethane is getting some attention here in Portugal, good attention, I would say, because the government just recently approved a subsidy for plants connecting their plants to the national gas grid, and also a subsidy for the sale of gas in the grid. So there's good there are good signs from the government here in Portugal around biomethane. And what I wanted to share and discuss with you is the following. I feel that there is a little bit of competition between the biogas and the electricity sector. And the myth that is somehow being discussed here is so the electricity sector is saying that electricity is more efficient than biogas, even in the industries that are hard to abate, because electricity technology has been improving, and nowadays there are electric technology that allows the industry hard to abate to reach the the heat, the level of heat that they need. Apologies if you have discussed this. In the meantime, I had to answer a phone call for
No,
5
we
minutes, so
didn't. No
I lost.
worries.
Okay, very well. So that was the myth that I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. We have only a minute left, but that is definitely something that comes up, the fact that we are competing with electricity, but while we know that it's a very complementary energy source. And yeah, when it comes to really the hard to abate industry, I think there are many studies out there that will be able to debunk the fact that electricity would be more efficient in those specific segments. So yeah, I think there is definitely a lot of backing for what we're saying, that we are complementary to those technologies. We come to the end of today. I'm very sorry for Dr. Vanita. I don't know if you want to quickly say something before we close.
I just wanted to add that the waste, when we say waste, the mindset changes. So I'm trying to educate every person that this organic waste is not waste. It's a huge resource. It's a renewable resource which AD plants use as a feedstock. So that is one line which we have to tell everyone from the start. So please start saying, even for sewage, I say that is a black gold. You should use terms like used water when we are doing a sewage treatment rather than saying a waste, because that's the mindset. Once we say waste, people take it in another way. It's a energy generation plant. It's kind of a plant which will be generating energy localized. That is what we wanted to create for AD plants rather than just the waste treatment units.
Thank you. Well, I think that's a great message to conclude today's session. And thank you so much to everyone for participating, engaging with us, and coming today. And hopefully it was productive for everyone. We'll see you at the next WBA Connect Plus session.
Thank you very much,
Anu.
everyone. Thank you, Julia. Fantastic hosting. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Dr. Jing. Everyone, do head to our online platform where I will create discussion on this topic, and you can share links and you can share more. Next event is in June, Fireside Chat with Argus Media. See you there.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.